Adventures with your favorite story timer, Annie, and her best pal, E. Oops, E, what were you doing?
Sorry.
That's okay, E. So today we are going to be reading the one and only orange book that everyone loves for about a few days now, Shadow Jumper.
Woohoo!
My favorite book. And you can see the cover design for front and back is very beautiful. It's like Jack is about to jump, and he's jumping across all of the rooftops. You can see every rooftop here. Such a nice cover design. Oh yeah, cover design is actually made by Rachel Austin. So shout out to Rachel Austin wherever you are. Thanks. Now let's get on with this. Chapter 5. When Beth said both her parents were dead, Jack felt strangely relieved. Given the way she looked, he'd been half expecting her to say they were werewolves or vampires or members of some weird cult. Sorry. It was a pretty dumb thing to say, he knew, but he couldn't think of anything better. It's okay, I was 2 years ago. I'm over it. Well, yeah, it was 2 years ago. Not I. Me, you were, anyways. Jack glanced at her in surprise. He couldn't imagine ever getting over it if his parents died, and if she was all right about it, he wondered why she looked so edgy. They died in a car crash. It was a head-on collision with a lorry. They were killed instantly. Beth's tone was flat and expressionless, but she kept twisting the straps of her rucksack around her fingers. That rucksack is very important, keep in mind. I live with my parents' friends now. They're my legal guardians. They must be tough. No, that must be tough, said Jack. It's okay. Lonely, though. So that's why you follow strangers down the street to see what they're up to, said Jack, trying to lighten the mood a little. Good job, I did. She was quick to reply. Jack grinned, relieved the awkward moment had passed. He still didn't understand, though, why she looked so uneasy when talking about her parents. It couldn't have been the first time she had to tell a stranger about their deaths. Cathy and Pete are lovely to look after me, so I don't have to go into care, but it's not like having real parents. Don't you have any other family? Nope, only a distant cousin of my dad, and she didn't want anything to do with me. Jack jumped nimbly onto a red brick wall, and then to the ground. He stood by a large green rubbish bin near the entrance of the gloomy alley. Something crunched underneath his shoe. He bent down to have a look. The remains of a mobile phone lay at his feet. He picked up a couple of the pieces and groaned, feeling in his pocket. Empty. It must have dropped out when he was running off from Kai. Mum would kill him. Maybe. He stuffed the pieces into... That was E. He's poking around the corner. His pocket, not sure how he would explain its condition to Mum when he got home. It would take ages to save up for a new one. Not that he cared. He didn't use it much. They had reached the noisy main street. The narrow pavement was jam-packed with jostling workers and tourists spilling out of the bars and restaurants. The sticky heat from the masses of people and buildings seared through Jack's thin clothes. They're very thick, actually. His skin prickled as if an army of ants were crawling in his flesh. He and Beth fought their way through the throng to find a quieter spot to talk. In the end, they dipped into the doorway of a closed sandwich shop and watched the crowd stream past. Jack started digging in his pocket for something to write with. Keys, a used tissue, and the bits of his phone tumbled onto his hand. Impatiently, he pushed them back in. Here. Beth opened a zipped compartment of her rucksack. She handed him a pen, held out her hand, and he wrote his address on it. Beth opened her mouth as if to say something, but then took back her pen and made to leave. Don't forget this! Jack went to pick up the rucksack, but found his fingers closing around the thin air. He looked up in surprise. I don't like people touching my bag, snapped Beth, as she clutched the straps and stuffed the pen back in its compartment. With a curt wave, Beth set off jogging down the street. He watched until she became swallowed up by the swarming people. What was that about? He wondered to himself, as made his way back to the flat in the opposite direction. The next morning started with good news. Aunt Lil had phoned to say Dad had got a new job on a science project, but Jack groaned with frustration when he found out Mum still didn't know where he was. Where's your phone? Said Mum as she dashed around getting her things ready for work. Your dad tried to call, but he couldn't get through. And what with me on the phone, he couldn't get through here either. He's promised to ring again in a couple of weeks when things have settled down. With a flash of guilt, Jack remembered the broken phone pieces laying in his bedroom. Luckily, Mum was too busy droning on about patching things up, it being for the best, and 4 months being a long time, to ask any more. His attention drifted. Would Dad really ring in a fortnight? He didn't have a good track record of keeping promises, and Jack couldn't afford to wait days, let alone weeks. The sores were popping up at a faster rate than ever. A new patch of inflamed skin had appeared overnight behind his right ear. He'd had to brush his hair forwards to hide it from Mum. The latest bumpy blotch was only 5 or 6 millimeters across, but at the rate things happened to his body, it could be colossal by the end of the day. It was as if the allergy had gone berserk. He couldn't bear to think what might happen if he didn't get help. Would his skin drop off his body like melting candle wax? That's a little bit gross. Ew. Are you listening to me, Jack? Jack looked at her blankly. I wanted you to know how things stand between us, and then everyone's clear. No secrets, right? He nodded vaguely. So what's this important thing you need to tell him? He hesitated. If he told her about his skin, she'd make him stay inside with Mrs. Roberts, watching him like a hawk. There'd be no more shadow jumping, and she'd probably make him go back to the doctor for more useless tests and medications. Nothing. I'd just like to see him. Mum ruffled his hair. I know, love. You have to be patient. I'm off to work. Mrs. Roberts will pop in at lunchtime. He groaned. He didn't need a childminder. He was 14 after all. Aha! That's how old Jack is. I thought so. And to think he's shadow jumping at my age, never in my life would I imagine that to be happening. Let's continue reading. And he was convinced that Mrs. Roberts spied on him with her little beady eyes. Mum turned away and picked up her bag. Remember, my lotion, I know. He rolled his eyes. She said the same thing every day. I wish I could take you on holiday somewhere, but with money so tight at the moment and me doing double shifts at the supermarket. Mum, stop fussing, he snapped. But his irritation instantly faded when he glanced at her face. Hurt was etched in the lines creasing her brow. There's no point in me going on holiday, he continued more gently. Not the way I am. Mum reached out a hand and placed it on his forehead. Her touch, usually cool and soothing on his skin, annoyed him today. It's not much fun for you, is it, being stuck inside in this heat? She said. And in the school holidays, too. Jack's face grew hot. A good job Mum had no idea how he spent his time, or she'd never let him out of her sight. Don't worry, I've got something to do. A mate's coming over. Great, who is he? She, said Jack awkwardly, hoping Mum wouldn't make a big deal out of it. Beth's going to be at my school the next term. I'm glad you've made a friend, said Mum smoothly. I know things have been difficult for you. Mum, don't make me sound so sad. She was right, though. School was a nightmare. He couldn't play sports outside like everyone else or go out at lunchtime because of his condition. Instead, he spent his time cooped up in the computer room or library, staying well away from the large windows. And because he didn't do the same things the others did, finding mates sometimes seemed like an impossible challenge. Also to know, mate is just a British way of saying friend. You British people know what I mean. Because this is a British book after all. And because he didn't do the same things the others did, finding mates sometimes seemed like an impossible challenge. His stomach tightened as he remembered those times he started new schools and tried to make friends. At one place, kids shunned him because they were scared of catching slime disease. At another, he'd earned the name Oil Slick. Used to being ignored, he'd learned to keep himself to himself. That meant with girls, too. No one in their right mind would hold hands with him, let alone do anything else. I'd hold hands with Jack. What about you? Ladies, think about it. He's a sweet guy. He lost count of the number of times he'd wished Dad would get a job and stick with it. Was it really so hard to stay working at the same place for more than 9 months? Then he wouldn't have to keep going through the torture of starting somewhere new. The one good thing about Dad leaving was for the first time in ages, Jack would start the new academic year at the same school as last term. Mum? What, love? He hesitated. Have a good day. She looked at him quizzically. You too. Desperation swept over him as the door slammed, and he was left to his own thoughts. He was right not to mention his problems. Mum's overprotective streak was bad enough as it was. He had no choice. He'd have to sort this out himself. But loneliness smothered him like the lotion he'd rubbed on his skin. And that's the end of chapter 5. So, what did you think? I think people should be more nicer to good old Oil Slick. Haha, I'm just kidding. I'll call him Jack. But why in the world wouldn't girls hold his hand? I would definitely. I'm a really sweet person. And even if he got oil all over him, I don't really care. Easily done. You just wash it off when you get home. And of course, I'm not really the best sort of person when it comes to those things either. I have acne all over my face, so I have to put on some acne cream sometimes. Otherwise, my acne would get out of hand. So ladies, what do you think? Would you like to be Jack's friend? I think I would. E, would you want to be Jack's friend even if you don't have any hands to hold with him? E? Oh, never mind. E's probably asleep somewhere in dreamland. Well, it seems to be the end. Tune in next time for more awesome adventures with Annie Time Story Time and her positively quiet pal, E.
Goodbye, guys. See you next time.
You're awake?
Yeah.
Alright. Bye, guys. Thanks for watching. Gracias.
Bye-bye.
Psh.